Irene, thank you very much for doing this. It's really a pleasure to see you.
Hello, Mike.
So it was June of 2006 that you came back to Kraft?
Yes.
And in June of 2006, what were you thinking?
Well, my first question as I thought about coming back was, can the company be saved? I was very disturbed having had the opportunity to watch from the sidelines as to what had happened to the company over the prior couple of years. And I was worried as to whether or not things had deteriorated to a point that the company could not be turned around. I spoke to enough people and did enough homework to convince myself that this was indeed the iconic portfolio that I had always thought it was, that there were still some very, very talented people at the company, and that there was an opportunity to be able to turn it around. And so my first thought was, what's it going to take, and what do I need to do to get it going?
And so when you were thinking about what it would take to get it going, you started off with let's get growing?
Yes, yes.
Why let's get growing?
Well, I thought the whole challenge of what had happened to the company over the prior couple of years is that they had become maniacally focused on cost to the exclusion of thinking about growth. And so for me, it was both a call to action and I think it was a liberating idea for an organization that had been really battered and had lost its self-confidence. And so I found the idea of let's get growing really resonated with the population.
And you introduced the idea of the growth diamond.
Yes.
What was the growth diamond about?
It very quickly became clear that our issue was not our categories, it was our participation within those categories. There were many consumers that were eating cheese, they were eating meat, they were drinking coffee, they just were not eating and drinking our brands of those categories. And so the idea was really to take a look at what we needed to do to look for the growth opportunities within those categories. The growth diamond was simply a visual representation of the megatrends that were going on. It was about trading up to premium products. It was about focus on health and wellness. It was about focus on convenience. And those were really, that was the lens that we then used to reframe our categories and to make them more relevant and contemporary to our consumers.
You've also been fearless about changing your portfolio, taking businesses out and bringing new businesses in. What gives you the confidence to do that? How do you decide?
I think the one thing that struck me as I looked at our portfolio, as I mentioned, I felt pretty good about the fundamental categories that we were in. It became clear, though, that on our best day, even if we could get those categories growing at a faster rate, we would not be a top-tier performer. So we certainly could improve our performance, but to really become top-tier, we really needed a few more tailwinds.
By my count, you've spent $25 billion between Lou.
27, actually.
27 billion?
Yes.
Between Lou and Cadbury?
Yeah, about 7 on Lou, about 20 billion on Cadbury.
And the first one, Lou, got you into China, and the second one, Cadbury, got you into India?
India and solidified our positions in Mexico, actually. The neat thing about Lou is it did give us a beachhead in a number of the developing markets, which was not an area that we were particularly successful in. We took our business, I'm really proud of this fact. We took our business in China. The legacy Kraft business before we bought Lou was about $50 million in China in 2007. We just sold $100 million in the month of January in China.
Wow.
And I think it's a real testament to the power of the toehold and then putting the right managers in place and then building on that infrastructure. So the combination really of those two moves leapfrogged us into a whole new position. And it's one of the reasons I'm so confident that we're on a much stronger growth trajectory today than we were a couple of years ago.
So one of the great things that you've done, and there are a lot, but one of the things that you've done is really done a cultural transformation of Kraft. And you have this string, act like owners, inspire trust, simple, inclusive, truthful, lead with head and heart. That's the Irene that I know. How did you come up with that?
You know, it's fascinating. People read those and they say, well, that sounds like you, Irene. How does it pertain to the company? The catalyst, actually, for the work that we did on values was the Lou acquisition. Because we had all these new employees who came into the company and said, well, what is Kraft? Who is Kraft? And we really were in the process of evolving. And so it was a terrific time for us to step back and say, who should Kraft be? And so we spent time talking to employees around the world. We did focus groups. We did online chats. And we talked to them about what are the characteristics of companies that they admire? What are the characteristics of a company they would like to work for? What are some of the strengths that they see in Kraft? what are some of the areas of opportunity. And on that basis, we distilled those down to the 7 values that you just referenced. And I found those to be incredibly powerful articulations of where we want to be. We are very clear that these are aspirational. We are not where we need to be on most of them.
So when you think about doing a transformation, when you think about a major change effort, what do you use as your guidance?
You know, I think anybody who's been involved in a transformation typically wishes they had gone faster. I think that's the thing I hear most frequently. And it's always a challenge to figure out how fast is fast enough, but I'm reminded by a story that I heard Leo Apotheker from HP tell, that the Swedish Parliament at one point was contemplating changing the side of the road that you drive on from the left to the right. And there was a lot of controversy about it. It was a big decision, and they were very concerned. And they said, you know, this is a really big decision. Let's not move too quickly. How about if week 1 we have bicycles move over, week 2 we have trucks move over, week 3 we have buses move over, and then in the 4th week we'll move over the cars. And I thought it was such a telling story about the reality of when you want to make cosmic transformational change, you got to move pretty quickly, and you got to get all the pieces coming together.
So if you were giving advice to a new CEO in another company, and he were to look at his operating team, what kind of expectation should he have or she have about how many will be present in 5 years?
I don't know that I have a rule of thumb with respect to numbers. I would say the major criterion is, do they get it? Do they get, you know, do they understand the direction that you want to take the company? And it's pretty clear who gets it and who doesn't. The key is whether the leaders are on the bus. And I think what I've come to understand is if they're not on the bus pretty quickly, they're never coming, and you have to deal with it. And so I think the key is making sure you have the right leaders in the right roles, and then the rest takes care of itself. And that was a critical consideration of mine as I looked around at my own executive team and at that next level down. I ended up, over the course of the first 2 years, I actually replaced almost half of those top 2 levels of management. But it's made a profound difference, because it just, when you have people that are like-minded, that are thinking new thoughts and are in line with the direction that you're trying to take the company, the rest of it happens far more naturally. There is only so much that the leader of the organization can actually do. I can make all the pronouncements that I'd like. It's those moments of truth every day that the employees experience with their immediate leaders. And so for me, it's all about the people.
So you've been able to move Kraft from bottom quartile to top quartile in terms of performance.
Yep.
What's next for you? What's next for Kraft?
I think what's next for Kraft is to continue to perform at that level. It's going to take us a while. It's been a long time in coming, and it's going to take us a while before the market thinks that what we just did is a splash in the pan. So I think our focus right now is sustainably performing at that higher level, but I have every confidence that we've got the right people, the right tools, and the right portfolio in place to pull that off. And I'm going to just breathe for a while.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to just watching it play out.
So some people say you're fearless. Are you fearless?
No, but I would say that I am a prudent risk taker, and I think there's a lot of discussion about what that looks like and how do you know a smart risk from a silly risk. I do my homework, and when I make a decision as to what is the right thing to do, I go for it. And obviously, I think the Cadbury transaction played out rather publicly, but we had really done our homework there. I knew it was the right thing for the company. I had a fairly good sense of what it was going to take to pry the asset loose, and fortunately it played out the way we had hoped it would.
Now some people say that managing over the next 2 decades in business is going to be much more difficult than managing over the last 2 decades. Do you see that? Do you see 21st century as being exceptionally challenging?
I do. It's just, it's partly because there are so many more variables out of our control. I think as I think about the impact that the macroeconomic environment has had on our business over the course even of the last 2 years, it's profound. It's profound in terms of the impact it's had on our categories, on our consumers, on our input costs, and that's not going away anytime soon. So I think you've got that. You've got government regulation, which is at an all-time high, whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley or it's some of the new regulations that are coming down the pike that give us far fewer degrees of freedom within which to operate. And then we have just the globalization of the economy that is just creates whole new sets of challenge, whether it is dealing with foreign governments, whether it is dealing with just political unrest in different parts of the world. And so it's a very unique set of challenges, I think, so much of which is outside an individual company's control.
Fantastic. That's great. Irene, thank you very much
you.
for doing this.
Thank you.